Yeah. In the world. Y'all check it. From mama's broken hearted, I surely came. Sons that were slain for minimal gain. Youth that can't read, speech that can't talk. Passion to move, a love that won't walk. I speak to you, my heart and my soul. My family and folks, what I surely owe. My 100 double O, nigga.
Hello, and welcome to a new edition of Education is the Best Medicine. And thanks for watching. Remember, community public access has your back, and it's our best bet. Today is a special show. It's a culmination of a year for me in getting these two black men in one spot, in one place, and here on time. Rashid, and if you don't know him, you should know him. Rashid Shahid is a African-American man who, in my mind, was one of the discussions, the original discussions that I heard in the last 15 years around mentoring and rites of passage, and we're going to have him talk about that. Brother Boondox, or Bobby Jones, has few entrepreneurial enterprises that we're going to talk about, and also we're going to talk about being on time, and I'm going to also layer this show. Boondox is defined as, Boondox is something beneficial, a blessing. Dox is belief. Doxology is an expression of the praise of God. And in that context, I want to have a discussion in regards to the death and traumatization, not just of young black men like Oscar Grant and Trayvon Martin, but also about older black men sitting in their homes being murdered on an ongoing basis. Now, murder is not just a discussion about, because you can murder someone not only physically, but I'm talking about now, these gentlemen are talking about being murdered mentally. Yes. The statistics are probing, we've talked about on the show multiple times, a prison, school to prison pipeline on one end, and a black man that can't seem to get a break on the other end. So we got a lot of work, and I think these gentlemen are going to provide some solutions, because that's what I want them to do. Bobby, Boondox, I want to say thank you for coming on. Rashid, I want to thank you again for coming on as we have this discussion. So the question that I wanted to pose again is about the level of trauma, as we've always talked about. But how do we get out of one blaming the victim? I don't mind pulling myself up by my bootstraps, but I can't when they cut the boot, cut the strap, and don't want to give me the leather. Right. So as a black man that does a lot of mentoring and the discussion you've had the last 20 years, Rashid, tell us a little bit about yourself, one, and secondly, this discussion around how to address their trauma and quit the blaming mentality.
Wow. Well, first, your theme, education is the best medicine, is the solution also. And I've been working with youth for about 20 years now. And many of the youth that I've worked with are grown men. Fathers of them have their, fathers have their own children, their own family. And what's coming up for me now is the power of self-reflection. That is, being in integrity with who you really are. And that's an inner conversation. Because what I've seen is that most of the men, particularly our young brothers, have an image, but that's not who they are. So willing to look at their shadow, and when I say shadow, that dark side, that shame, that dysfunction, it's not the best word, but that idea that we're not okay for who we are. I'm a father, have a daughter and a son, and they're young adults now. And even just going in the home of that, and what have I created, what have I helped create. So it's really in a conversation, and it's in modeling what it means to be effective and powerful and really have an esteem that says, man, I'm all right. Now, how we do that, and when breakdowns do happen, like these situations with Trayvon and Oscar Grant, I mean, that stuff happens on a, not as often, but it happens a lot. So how do we respond to that? And so what I've been teaching young people and adults that want to be mentors is that it does take a whole village to raise a child, and the village has to be healthy. But I can't point fingers because 3 are pointing back at me. So there's an old African proverb says, if there's no enemy within, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. So it's really coming to know who we are. And that's where the work comes. That's the mental dialogue dynamic that we have to come to understand, like, okay, who am I?
I want you to hold that thought.
You're right.
Boom.
You're right. You're exactly right about that.
In the context of that, you've been having some discussions about just men being timely, men addressing, again, the personal issue.
Right.
Allow your music reflects that, and if you get a chance, pick up his DVD. It's available. I like it. It's on. Brother Rashid written a number of books on mentoring. Please get in contact with him. Buy his book. Start to read some of this literature that's been around for a number of years that provides a porthole for us to solve our problems. Given that context, what do you think are some of the discussions that we can have with this, Brother Jones? Dr.
Like
Boondox?
he was saying earlier, I totally agree with the part of people, not only just black people, but people in general need to have a sense of who they are. Like I asked the person, I was having a conversation, and I asked the person a question. I said, what are people? You would be surprised how many people would be stuck if you ask them, what are people? First thing they'll say, well, human beings. You just said the same thing twice, but what are people? That lets you know that it's a lot of people that's ignorant to self, just people general. Okay.
So you gentlemen aren't just causing this a cultural race problem, it's probably a societal problem.
Oh, it's not only, problems don't start at just one place. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they do, but then they spread about. And it's kind of like the reactions to problems that make them either bigger or don't pay them no mind, so they kind of go away. That's what it is. We paying more attention to the negative parts of mostly everything. You know, I came up in a negative situation. I grew up right in Westover. You know, just seen it all. You know, I wouldn't say I done it all, but done my share.
Enough.
You see what I'm saying? And I wouldn't take nothing back because that made me who I am.
Right.
But what I do notice is from that, I know that most people seem to put all their focus on the negative part, the problem. I start this little thing where I try to look on the brighter side of things. It's been working for me for the last, I don't know how many years, but it still affects me. When I hear about Javon and I hear about all this stuff, oh man, it affects me. I talk to people about it, but we've been talking for a long time. Proactive is something that a lot of people, they know what the problem is, they know where the focus is being at, but what is being done to change it, and that's what we trying to get around.
Why are we afraid to change? What's the problem with us changing? What's the fear of us changing?
That's a good place because it's work, and a lot of us get up in the morning, brush our teeth, wash our face, do our ritual, get in the car,
hopefully
get in that rat race to go get paid. That's work, but the power of the work is really embracing who you are. And I'm not going to blame Brother Bobby for why I don't have what I say I want. I could. At the same time, he could be an obstacle. And because I'm learning to know who I am, and you talked about who we as a people on a higher level, my spiritualness, my consciousness, I'm going to understand his situation and go get my goal. So that's the work, it's to stop blaming. And we know you working in media, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. So we always want to have a conversation, what's wrong and what's not working. So we spend 20 hours, 20 years still having the same conversation. But moving out, and it's real true, you know, keep your eye on the prize. If you have a destination, you may get there, but with no destination, you just going in circles. So a lot of our youngsters are out having a conversation about dreams. But they're in an illusion because they have no plan or no one showing them.
Take action and go achieve.
Exactly.
And how about this? The discussions have to be not only about self and self-responsibility, but how an entire system
Yes, sir.
encompasses in a
Yes, sir.
cultural
Yes,
issue.
sir.
So in order to know about myself, I have to believe what you're telling me is true. So for example, I think Jefferson's a great president, but I also think that he has some issues like, petrophilia and dating young girls and raping and being a plantation owner. May have been one of the greatest presidents in America, but his history hasn't spoke to the truth. So once we don't know the truth about the Jeffersons or about the first 15 presidents to condone slavery,
Right.
then we don't have a real honest understanding about American history. I just heard Rick Santorum say that American history wasn't being taught. Well, it's not being taught because no one wants to know the truth.
It's one way to look at it. Yeah.
I mean, well, if it was, then we wouldn't be having discussions about, what the Civil War meant, with whether Lincoln was a great president, because they all were great at some point. But Lincoln at one point after the war wanted to send all Africans back to Africa.
Yeah.
But in response to what you were saying earlier and what you saying, cultural in America today, like you say, everybody get up, they got their ritual, and we live in a high, fast-paced world. So going back to asking a person a question, who are people, and people getting stuck on that question. Now you add the high-paced, fast-paced world to it. That you chasing your dollar, you're going, working all these hours, 14 hours a day. You're trying to be there with your kids, and you're trying to do little things when you can and fit it all in. Now, the ignorance of self gets pushed back further and further because you're trying to keep up with the rent.
That's a good point.
You're trying to keep up with just the bare necessities. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and when you look at it like that, that's kind of, I don't know if that's looking at it on the negative side or the positive side. I mean, if a lot of people even just took time out to see that, maybe they can start thinking of a way on how to change it.
Well, can I add, systems, what you're talking about, systems are created. People create systems so that other people can participate in those systems for their benefit. So slavery was a system, was designed. It wasn't accidental.
And we transfer to today, I've been a real issue with poverty pimping. Leadership that says they have this discussion around community and they are for community, they get the dollars and then they run the community in the ground. And when they're caught, they run back to the community talking about racism, sexism, classism. I think that's the blaming mentality. So here you are following a dialogue opposite your culture, so you can control, because leadership for a lot of people means control. It doesn't mean sharing. It doesn't mean a community of a collaborative effort. It doesn't mean us working together to solve a problem. It means what I'm going to tell you to do and what you should do, or you're going to the jail, or you're going to get your taxes lifted, or you just want to be a part of that mix. Light skin, dark skin.
Somewhat of modern day slavery.
Oh, well,
absolutely,
no doubt,
absolutely,
no doubt.
Yeah.
I said it. Modern day slavery.
And brother Malcolm X, may rest in peace, he was about what you're talking about, removing the wool from our eyes and really not being attached to material things. In his process, he said all he had was a watch and his briefcase and his suit. So then on the other hand, his family wasn't supported when he passed away. So there's a duality. So we got to definitely have some real conversation, and the goal is that integrity. Because what I just got exposed to today was purpose. What's my purpose? Like Brother George, you on purpose. You create, real talk, even inside of the challenges, you're on purpose in bringing a conversation around best education is the best medicine. So you're doing your purpose. So as long as we're doing our purpose, and if we get out of integrity, which we may do, we can get right back into it.
So if people think this show was planned, this is the first show where up until 15 minutes, I knew when my guests were coming. And I had to trust in these two brothers to have a level of integrity to the point of getting here early. A day early. Which is what I'm talking about.
And let me add real quick too around that. That's a powerful piece with us as men, as brothers in particular, is honoring our word. Right. Because that's what the youth gonna understand. they say, you know, brother, I'm gonna come and get you. I'm gonna do this, and he don't show up. So what does he do? He go find another group of people that's gonna back him and support him.
Gang involvement,
exactly. That's his new family,
or trauma-inducing, or substance-inducing, because a lot of the ills come from unfulfilled dreams.
Absolutely,
unsatisfied dreams. You know, and the reason I am glad that you brothers are with me, because y'all every day trying to get to y'all dream. Nobody's perfect.
No.
But every day you're making a consistent effort with your family, with who you deal with, to be the person you're going to be, even to the point of being maybe a little bit dogmatic, which is okay. I was called dogmatic a long time ago. I love that. I love that word.
I found out.
Oh, it's great. It means focus purpose.
I didn't know what she meant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but when you find, again, and I'm going to keep this piece up, because we need to remove the charlatans and the fakes from our community. They need no longer have our support unless they're doing your kind of work.
But you see the work being done.
And you see the work being done. That's not promises. We're tired of promises from leadership that wants to set themselves up in a discussion about being better than us, doing the most bizarre things, almost akin to any plantation order could do. They do more and do it, impunity.
Right.
So we're going to call that to order right now. There will be no more poverty pimping in our community. We want, if we're going to support folks, we're going to support black men like yourself that are doing a one-on-one, trying to get things, trying to give you an honest recovery for your dollar, whatever that is. Yeah. And I implore you guys to read Rashid's book. They're excellent. One of the first contacts I had with black men writing the book was him. And him handing me this book, said, "Hey, you better read this." And I went like, "Oh, really?"
Wow.
And then of course I paid for the book. But
and you know what?
That was a long time ago.
I had you read that book because you was speaking. He was speaking about what was going on. And a lot of times, like you said, when people are giving a conversation, talking about it, lip service, and say, "Hold on, bro, I got a solution." We spending another 2 hours talking about the problem. Let's go do something. The house is burning.
Right.
The house is on fire. We're going to talk about how we're going to put the fire out. We're going to talk about when we're going to put it out. The house is on fire. Let's do something. And as we are putting the fire out, we can continue to create and build what's going to make it last to prevent it from happening again.
Once you say hello to your family, we know that your family is very important. When I first met you, that's the first thing you mentioned to me was your family. And I thought that was just so unique.
Of everything. Once it's over or before it even started, family there. So even if you building your own family, what's up to everybody? Rest in peace to my mother, my grandmother, my father. I'm still here. I do it for all y'all,
Good, thanks,
and going back to books, books, that was my first break. Because I heard a saying, I know y'all heard of it. You want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book. So that made me.
Marcus bookstore was broken too. Now the book was stolen.
Ain't that something?
That ain't
Shout out to Marcus bookstore. Love y'all.
That ain't
Love
right. You said not a book was stolen.
Not a book was stolen.
That's something else. And that's what a real treasure was at in the book.
Well, we're having this discussion as men that consider education important on all levels. So the concept around not just book learning but street learning, because a lot of black men come into the fold having street learning.
Right.
It's endemic to us. It's a whole issue, and how the media plays in that, because the perception that we're seeing of men of color are either negative criminalizations. Either you're too young or too old. There's never any middle. So we need to change the image. That's one of the reasons I'm having you brothers on, because this year I wanted to change the image that there are black men from 25 to 45 that function on a very high level. Now, I don't know what you've heard.
A lot of people never took me as the type of person to pick up a book. If you look at my, see me on general, you see how I dress, you see the locks, you might think, okay, here we go again. Until I actually speak to you, and it was times back, just hanging out on the block with everybody. I'd be sitting on the car reading me a book.
Yes.
And that was just weird, to a lot of people.
Yes.
But after a while, a lot of my own boys started coming, "Boom, what you read?" I think I read a book called, I read 12 Universal Laws of Success. Because I was getting 12. I read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. That's the one changed my life.
Mm.
I took her for I was staying in my grandmother's house, man, right in West Oakland. You know, nobody liked to go back home. But I was sitting there laying on a bunk, and I tried the, you know, the little activity they say try.
Yeah.
And first time in my life, I actually thought about what I wanted in detail, to the incense that I wanted burning. A month later, I had my own place, new car. That easy. It was one time I was going to school up at CCC. Love school.
Contra Costa College?
Yeah, okay. School is good. It's a good place to dialogue, everything. But I needed money. I had a son. I said, you know, this school cool, but I need money. I seen a homeboy of mine, my cousin. He was walking up the street, just got him a job. I'm like, what you have? Your artist got a job. He just told me the name of it. Okay, one day I'm at school, moseying on the computer. I looks it up. I fills the application out online. This is doing cable. Comcast. And this is where I made a majority of money at, because you can make good money contracting. They don't pay as well as they used to. But make a long story short, I went through the process, interviewed, drug tests and everything, got hired, and the lady said, oh, so how much cable experience you got? I said, none. She said, you lucky. And then I walked to the next room, supervisor, I had on some Timberland boots. Oh, we all wear Timberlands around here. You'll fit right in. And I do this right here. Everybody who know me, know Boondox, they tell you. I always say I'm always at the right place at the right time. And I am.
All right.
All right.
And I am. And it never fails.
That's good stuff.
So how are we going to move this level of positivity into the general community? You know, again, we are about solutions. And as black men are always crafting solutions, what do you think are some of the solutions? We talked about education, we talked about culture, right place, right time.
I say join any organization that is progressive, that's moving.
NAACP,
yes.
Any
organization that is doing something progressive.
AMLO.
And inside of that organization, bring your best self. And what you
no more sitting on the sideline.
There you go, brother.
Right.
And what you you know, and keep
it,
and there's a saying that each one teach one. So you wherever you are, just show up and drop that seed. You don't never know when it's going to grow, but drop it. You know, and because on Sunday most black folks are where?
Church.
At church. So hopefully the minister is reminding his congregation to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave.
Right.
Seek the knowledge, study yourself, learn about yourself, and I believe they will be inspired to create some type of structure to support our youth.
And I just want to another public service announcement, and I have to do them. Recently, by the time viewers see this, you will have heard about the killings at the Oxford University, which 7 people were murdered, in which a Asian student who had been removed from the school and had some, quote unquote, here in the media, had some problems, anger management problems, went into the school and murdered 7 folks, majority of them women. And this is the issue that he was looking for a woman, a young man of Korean birth, my understanding. So we've got to start to address this wholesale discussion around male-dominated violence and trauma on females. We have to be clear that that's not acceptable and that this will not, it cannot exist in the future of a society, you know, because the women are our mothers, they are our sisters, they are our daughters, they're the first teacher of our child. So we need to take a concerted effort because, again, violence isn't now not just a particular community; it is a societal problem.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's no longer African Americans or Hispanics, or it could be a model community. It could be anyone that just has a disgruntled attitude toward not being satisfied in their general lives. Again, back to purpose, back to who you are as a person.
Yes.
We've got about 5 minutes, and I kind of want to have you talk about a few of the things that you're into and you look toward the future. And we're gonna play your last cut of this because you know we gotta do that. And the last cut of this is kill that brother. N-word brother. Brother's eye. That's where it goes. You know.
Now,
Final word.
So much to say in a short time.
You got a minute.
Okay. I would say for me is learn to live the life you love and share that love. Just piggyback off what you talked about, the news that happened yesterday with the killing in Oakland. Yes, we have to be okay with saying time out. I need to go talk to somebody. I need to go get somebody to get another perspective before I do harm. Because that is selfish when I got to take 7 people out because I'm not happy. That's a mindset. That's a mental illness. So we got to be okay with saying time out. Let me reflect. Let me see how I can live a little bit longer and help someone else live a little bit longer.
Boom. 1 minute, because we're playing your music again.
Okay. What I want to add to that, I guess, is he's right about that. Look into yourself. Look at the man in the mirror sometime, you know. If you're not happy with you, ain't nobody around you going to be happy with you. And start finding out ways to look on the brighter side. Stop focusing on the negative part of everything.
Come on, bro.
We already know the world negative, everything. Yeah, that's the world if you look at it like that. But at the same time, all the negativity that goes on, I still try to find something positive.
Now, I want to do another special thank you. Nobody is. I'll do a special thank you to the executive director, Bernetta Fisher, for pulling this whole show together. Without her leadership, we would have been unable to take this show tonight, given the various schedules of the individuals on the set. So with that, we're going to play Boondox, Kill That Nigga, and it's Boondox, and hey.
It's a track I produced. My brother is doing a little poetry speaking on it, but kill that nigga inside you means kill all that they say nigga means ignorance. So it means any color, race, anybody. Kill that ignorance inside.
And if you're talking to Africans and Ebonics, you're talking
that nigga got you 27 to life in prison. That nigga destroyed your family. Got your mother on drugs.
So again, how the language has been changed, and we don't even identify with positive language.
Trying to live like a rapper, fake life to accumulate some fame.
Man.
The token is to tell slave master we all are satisfied.
Okay, here comes Boondox, Kill That.
Other man, you help the European execute our demise. What has that nigga got me? Some gold teeth, some new wheels, and job and harassment for OD. You have given them permission to harass, handcuff, and beat up any brother on the streets. Who taught you how to be a nigga? The music, movie, and media exposure. We have to set that nigga up inside you to kill him. Bury that nigga and give that nigga some closure. Too short said, die nigga, die nigga, die nigga. For black folks can take over, let Africans breathe. I'm about to become a real brother and pick up arms and make the Europeans greed. I'm trying to protect my seed, so one day you'll read that Africans got tired of niggas, so it's time for the white nigga to bleed. I say this because history tells us of the reinforcement of niggerism implemented by